So what happens when you get to the route B after having seen the ending B, but while having all weapons? Well, this happens. First, the cutscene, well, up until the Shadow Lore, everything plays the same.
Oh, so this is why.
So wait, so the
Okay.
difference here is that you have to get all weapons?
Isn't this why you asked me for that
Exactly.
save file?
Well, overall, at the very end of it, but the save file you gave me was just for other things that I will mention at the end
okay.
during the credits. Don't
Alright.
worry, Pedro. Before
Okay.
the end, it will all come full circle. So now we're gonna see the ending, well, that splits into C and D. As you may remember, Kaine decided to go away. Unfortunately, Tyrann has other plans.
I'm happy for him.
You're not allowed to be happy, remember, Kaine?
You know, Sunshine, that black scroll.
So is this what happened after the end of Ending
The
A that we
ending
just
A.
never saw?
Exactly. Ending A was seen before this. B was just seeing from the Shadow Lore standpoint, and now this happens.
Let me guess. Kaine's going to attack him.
Hold on, Jova. You're just seeing it.
Wait.
Here we go.
No! It wasn't fun at all! I turned you into a killing machine. I spread evil and chaos.
So reminds me of when a persona is awakened.
It's so empty now. Why? I don't understand.
Emotions and shit.
So emotional.
Sorry, Sunshine. Maybe I'm just nicer than you thought.
Okay.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba.
I hate it when people are nice.
Stop being nice to me.
Is he being defeated
apparently
by the
something-
power of
Well,
love?
that's the problem. Yeah,
I'm gonna swallow you up, Sunshine.
Tyrann is trying to take over the body, but something's wrong with Kaine in a sense that she's now, as you may have noticed, has now the hots for Papa NieR.
Kaine, what is it?
Listen to me. The shade inside
So
me
as
is
a
growing,
result,
and I can't stop
she's
it.
gonna relapse.
Soon. Real soon. I'm gonna go berserk.
We have to kill her, don't we?
Back anymore.
That's the problem. Tyrann is trying to do this voluntarily, but the problem is due to the
Shut up and
relapse
listen to me.
effect, he's taking over savagely. So he will, neither of them will actually have control over the body. It will just be primal instinct.
Oh boy.
Nice view of a
So there's no
breast
way-
there.
There have been countless in the game, Dibs. It's a bit late for noticing them.
I just loved how we zoomed in on
This
the...
kind of moment, it seems a bit out of place.
Yeah, whatever.
So it was before, Dibs.
The only thing I noticed that was different is that we focused on the bowl.
And now she's on fire.
No, it's the Black Scroll, remember? It's the same thing that Yona has, by the way. As I mentioned, the Black Scroll is a side effect of our applicants.
So what's stopping Yuna from coming to that eventually?
She will,
Well, great.
And- but Papa NieR just doesn't know.
And I can't see.
So, you know, losing a meal wasn't bad enough. Let's lose
Kaine.
yeah.
So, here's the true final boss.
Hi.
Huh. Doesn't look too different.
Well, hell, Sunshine. It's not like I can stop it.
Is it now?
When gestalts go out of control, they lose their minds. Your memory
So that's
and
where the
mine
meme
will be
comes from.
completely overridden.
So, are these what shades are thinking whenever they attack us and they're all berserk like that?
Partially. Some of them, the strongest of them, just retain their memories. Others just go instinct like Hook. So essentially, now you have to defeat Kaine. Here's the problem: it's
We don't have
literally.
we don't have Vice with us either.
Yeah, you have to do this magic. Good luck, especially in hard mode. I'm just letting how the beat.
Come here to watch each other die. You taught me something. You taught me that a man must be strong to protect
Yeah, sorry, I just need to go to the pause menu. What were you saying again?
Believe in me, Kaine. I'm going to save you. I swear it.
Maybe he got through to
So
her
we
bit.
had to hold out for that bit.
Well, there might be one way to save her.
Oh, manages to speak with Papa NieR.
It don't matter, so don't ask. Just shut up and listen.
Just shut up.
Just roll with it, okay?
I said listen.
Okay.
Well, speak then.
Hold on, it's
Save Kaine's life,
important.
alright?
Well, listen, can you stop firing shit at us while we're trying to listen?
Again, I can't control it.
When the time comes, I'm going to bring Kaine down.
Okay.
And as soon as I do, you need to stab her in the heart.
Oh, Tyrann.
Hearts.
That's to save her.
Don't believe me. Stand around with your thumb up your ass. I want you to die a terrible death.
He kind of sounds a bit like this Count Willem Dafoe.
Remember, he's Spike Spencer.
Well, Papa NieR, do you really have any better ideas?
I think
Well,
this is
we'll
the best
see.
the camera has behaved in a boss fight.
Yeah, but mostly because the area is large enough. In a close space. Surprisingly enough, the theme he's playing is a remix of the one of Emil. I don't know why this choice.
Does Kaine have her own theme?
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
she does.
has, but
I'm guessing-
it's usually not used for battles.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm
only in Automata it
guessing.
gets a remix.
I'm guessing he thought of
This
that
was
more
better.
fitting.
Okabe, but he was the composer.
Kind of like the a more sad tune.
Another thing, yeah, Kaine is so agile you need the dash attack. There we go. And now it's time for the choice that will split into ending C or D.
Very nice.
Just listen closely.
Now, if you want to save your precious Kaine, there are two ways to do it. One is to plunge your sword into her
Actually, it's a
chest.
spear, but whatever.
That's what she wants after all. Freedom from burdens. Freedom from life.
What's the other way?
The other way
Oh boy.
is to make her a normal human being again.
A complete one. Remember,
That
Papa NieR is the catalyst.
Oh.
You can do it.
Well,
So wait,
good luck with that.
she'd infiltrate him?
Hold on.
Inside Kaine.
You have a choice,
trying to
and a
help
very important choice here.
Probably for
Hold
the
on.
same reason you are. Enough talk. Make your choice.
You can now kill Kaine, and that's what I'm gonna do. This is gonna be ending C, and it's gonna be not the canon one. But
Make your
for
choice.
now, just watch.
Make your choice. It's like a Saw game now.
And Kaine die for a fear from her burden, or sacrifice your instinct to make Kaine human again.
Of course, the more merciful path is the not canon path.
Oh yeah.
Kaine.
And there she goes.
Mm-hmm.
Think it's kind of hard to tell. He's...
Well, she kinda like evaporated.
and there you go.
Kaine. Let's go home.
Does anyone have a jar
Hold
or
on,
something?
Tyrann is some final words before going.
Fingers inside Kaine's body, tormenting her from within. I felt her pain, her emotions, as if they were my own. And there was so much pain. So when I say she's free now, I want you to believe me. Thanks to you, Kaine has been forgiven and saved. Oh wait, she had a final message for you.
Go fuck yourself.
Kaine. We'll always be together.
So pretty much everyone we got to know and like, aside from Yona, is dead.
Where did
Including
Jenna
the
go, by the away.
Oh, it was just in a corner. Don't worry.
She was in the corner.
Don't worry. I'm gonna skip the credits after a while. I'm gonna use this time to actually say a couple of extra things. Obviously, in case you didn't notice, also the entire backstory also of Tyrann is also in the side material. To give it a long story short, he essentially was a psychopathic soldier that just sneaked into the Gestalt project, basically replacing someone else that had to be treated, and he ended up becoming a shade, but he couldn't maintain a proper physical form, and he just stumbled in Kaine at the right moment.
And apparently the ending where we're merciful to Kaine and get her a happy ending is
And
not canon.
here's the important one. If you're playing this game, take this one for last. Unless you've done anything. Why? When Taro, in true tradition of the game, when Taro means something, he means it entirely. So, in order to save Kaine and having Papa NieR sacrifice his life for making her a human again,
Inside Kaine.
that means
Why are
Papa
you trying to
NieR
help her?
will be completely erased and forgotten. But it's us who are playing Papa NieR overall. So, as a result of that, doing this choice completely erases all of our save files.
Wow.
Well, rude.
Jeez.
But don't worry. The game warns you. Hold on. The game first we get this cutscene. Yeah, that's what it's saying.
Your daughter, your friends, everyone in your life will forget you.
So here's the question: is Papa NieR ready to sacrifice himself, even
Will be erased
forgetting about Yona, having Yona forget about him for the sake of Kaine?
to her mortal life.
The game warns you about this not once,
We're doing
not
this.
twice.
Are you absolutely sure?
3 times the charm?
I think so. Maybe. There you go. I think it's 3 times. Yeah.
Wow.
And in order to...
Let me make sure you get this.
Yeah, no, 4 times. There you go.
This is your last chance to change your mind. Are you really, really sure about this?
And in order to confirm this, you have to type the name you put for NieR again.
So what happens if you forget what name you put in?
You just have to retry again. The correct name was entered. All save files will be erased, and this includes all of the content of Grimoire Vice. Bit by bit, you're gonna have to see it going on, your entire inventory.
Could you imagine if I could erase
Your
all
quest
PS3
log.
save
Wow.
files ever?
Oh no,
That'd
my
be kinda
side
ridiculous.
quests!
All of the weapons,
No, not
understand.
the pipe!
Why do they make you sit through?
all of the words.
Yes, Pedro?
I understand what he's going for here, but at the same time, this entire act kind of breaks the immersion, honestly. I don't particularly care for this.
It's a meta thing.
I mean, I know, but like I have to answer the question 4 times. I have to see all of this. It's like we're in the middle of a cutscene and suddenly this. Like it's kind of immersion break. I don't particularly.
Also,
care for
not
this.
only that, but
I get what he was going for, but I don't think it was worth it.
even though the game does try to connect with you personally, it isn't incredibly meta in the way it's written and such. So for this to happen, it's a bit out of place.
I can definitely see where Yoko Taro definitely has his love of Undertale. Although I'll give this game
But
credit.
that game's incredibly meta, so it isn't out of place.
Yeah. I see where you're
From the
coming
word
from.
go, it is meta.
Yeah, I definitely see.
Leaving
I
memory
definitely
free.
see where you're coming from, Shiroi. Although I will give this game credit. At least it warned you what's gonna happen.
And it is done.
So hang on, if everything's deleted now, how's this cutscene playing?
Well, it's only the final cutscene.
Delete.
So does that mean
And
he's
then
gonna?
and then the power goes out, and you cannot see this cutscene, and you have to start the game all over again.
Actually,
Basically, just back up
hold
your
on.
save file.
So I'll say more at the end of the credits, but just say that the game has only deleted for now only on figurative speech. So as expected, now Kaine is a complete human being, all of her arms and everything. She's not a replicant anymore. She's an actual human being now.
Yeah,
And
we heard that.
Because I
And-
guess Papa NieR was able to merge with the shade
yeah,
within
because
her.
he was the catalyst. He could do that at the cost of his own life. And Yon, unfortunately, has only memories of her.
Oh, thank you.
So it's confusing whenever they combine magic and science like this.
Yeah.
What's wrong? I mean, you
And the
didn't-
sad thing is that we'll never get an ending where Papa NieR actually does the right thing and saves humanity.
Exactly.
Is this what leads into Automata?
Well, considering how 2B
Well,
looks...
yeah, the time gap is huge between this game and Automata, so it's irrelevant, Dweebs.
Oh, a lunar
I swear
tear.
though, 2B looks a lot like Kaine. Yeah, she looks like a fusion between Kaine and Yona with the black.
She gets a Kaine costume also, so yeah.
Also with the black mask thing that Papa NieR wears across his face in the
That
second
was
half.
because Nier lost an eye.
Oh, I get that. I'm just saying that 2B wears, you know.
So if you recall, Jova, in the very first E3 trailer, 2B did not have the mask, so it was probably something they thought after that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, she has the lunar tear, but she doesn't remember how she got it, but because it was Papa NieR who gave it to her. So essentially, it's coming like at the end of 350, have some kind of glimpse, but they cannot remember the character who vanished. And thankfully, don't have cheesy lines about ice cream, thank God. And with that, there are the credits of ending the.
So
the
that's
last
the
one.
canon ending, huh?
Well, the one between the two, but overall ending A, B, and D and the war canon one after the other. So I imagine you have a lot of questions for the final thoughts. So Pedro, go ahead first.
Me? Well, let me start with the negative stuff. I don't particularly care for this ending D. I mean, and it kind of saddens me that this is the canon one because I think it's the weakest one, honestly. But I guess that can't be helped. And I don't know. I kind of prefer the ending C, honestly. I think ending C makes much more sense because two reasons. One, I don't know. I don't know. After all of this, I mean, to see Yona end up without her father, I don't know. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Whatever. The point is, I love ending C though. Aside from that, the like I've said, even though I don't think it's as bad as he puts it, it is true that sometimes I think this game is a bit too tragedy happy. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's all done well, but even well executed stuff can run a bit. No. Even well made stuff can eventually become tiring if done too much, and this game tries a bit too hard to tug at your heartstrings, and there's not enough more happy comic relief moments to make up for it, at least in the cutscenes. I mean, I get that the side quests are the more comedic stuff, but I don't know. I kind of felt like some more comedic, like some slice of life stuff, like where we just see the characters hang out and stuff. That would have been nice as a little break from all the tragedy. I mean, it's a bit too tragedy happy, but. Aside from that, that's not at all a deal breaker. Aside from that, the gameplay is mediocre. I mean, there's nothing particularly wrong with it. It's just that it doesn't look particularly fun to play because the combat looks kind of repetitive. The side quests, I mean, that's just typical side quests in JRPG. So, aside from that, yeah. But aside from those problems. Yeah, the graphics look mediocre, but considering the budget, that's to be expected. And I've seen worse looking PS3 games. The music is great, although I do think sometimes the game is a bit too overly reliant on vocal tunes. I mean, just because you can do vocal doesn't necessarily mean you should, because sometimes it can be a bit distracting in certain emotional scenes. because you're trying to focus on the dialogue and there's a voice going, it's kind of the same problem I have with Blue Dragon, where, I mean, but the point is, aside from that, this is one of the best stories I've ever seen in a video game. Like, like, aside from those problems I mentioned, it's just brilliantly written. The characters are all incredibly believable and very human. The themes are amazing. Like, this game does a good job touching themes that most games will not dare touch. And I really appreciate the ambition of the game in general. And I think, regardless of those problems that I do have, the game definitely succeeded with mostly flying colors at what it was trying to do story-wise. I'm hoping, since you guys told me that Automata is more lighthearted in this one, I'm definitely looking forward to that, because I kind of feel a bit more lightheartedness in this game would have helped a bit, because, like I said, this game is a bit too tragedy happy for its own good. Like I've said, regardless of how well it's executed, too much of it can become tiring. Like for example, I mean, Anna the Green Gables starts off with 4 tragic episodes, but after that, it makes up for it by having like 3 episodes in a straight that are quite more happy for the sake of balance. Whereas this one, there's a bit too much tragedy. But the point is, yeah, it's definitely a very good game. For a brilliant story. It's just a shame that it's held back by gameplay that doesn't really look all that interesting, at least from what I've seen here. That's basically it. A great game. But I have the feeling that I'm gonna love Automata a lot more.
Alright then, Dweebs.
Yeah, pretty much what Pedro said. I mean, there were quite a few bits that just repeated, and it kind of got a bit formulaic at points.
Pedro expressed his opinion on this before. What do you think of the information balance in this game? Do you think it should have told a bit more and have less in the side material, or do you think it's enough to tell the story?
It depends what was in the side material.
Well,
I'm pretty sure we all understood everything, honestly.
I mean, it's a video game.
Hold on. I'm gonna have to hold all of you guys. Yeah, there's an after credit scene and then a thing I need to show.
Oh fuck! I came off the video.
Because we're back in the desert.
I don't think there would be an ending cutscene.
And
Emil?
Emil's head.
Oh crap! Holy crap!
Oh, just listen to what he says, because it's still alive.
I'm still alive.
Crazy.
Why?
I can't believe how well my sister's body holds up.
Apparently it does.
I know, right? Maybe it could even hold up for
just
a
listen,
sequel.
Hold on.
Hard to move when you're just ahead. I wonder where everybody is.
Uh,
I can't wait to
about that.
Aww.
Yeah.
So that's why the head returns in Automata.
It's Emil.
Wait, so he can remember things?
Yep. Aww. Well, hey, at least Emil survived.
It's a bit.
You get more space on your hard drive.
Keep your spirits high, Emil. Keep your
Not just that.
I'm totally out to see all my
hold
friends
on.
who are alive.
And with that, I get my last trophy and the platinum, and I can pass this game on to other people that wanted to know this game, as I did with this playthrough to you. And now it's the time the game actually deletes my save file.
So, in theory...
So you can get around it at least.
So, in theory, if you powered off
And
your console...
Yeah, potentially you can.
Well,
But not
anyway,
before
guys,
getting
I'm off
trophy.
to go see my friends in the
And
sequel.
As a last thing, you get the title screen, but with a single lunar tear.
Oh.
But hey...
Actually, that's another thing. The long way was, I'll be quick. This whole deleting save thing, like I've said, I can see what you're going for, but it's not really necessary. And quite honestly, I would have preferred the New Game Plus. I get what you're going for in terms of theme, using gameplay mechanics for the sake of, but at the same time, in this particular case, I don't think it was really worth it. It didn't really add anything as far as I'm concerned. Go ahead, Luis, continue.
Yeah, and also the vocal themes. I mean, they're nice They're nice, and in fact, listen to them on their own. I'm sure they'd be good. But during scenes, during some scenes, it kind of it really got distracting. Like it's like Paige was saying, I'm supposed to concentrate on what they're saying, and yet there's someone in the background going, ah.
Yeah, it can be a bit. This is the problem I have with Blue Dragon. Like a lot of times, vocal tunes should be reserved for other
I mean,
stuff.
imagine if other video game franchises known for sad moments had vocal tunes.
It can
Like-
work.
Yeah, I've honestly seen it work more
Or
often than
have
it's
an
not.
over excess of vocal tunes.
It can work. Technically, the problem is that it has to be done in a very specific way. Like the vocals have to be either really subdued or something like that. But anyway, keep going.
And I'll be honest. I'll be honest. When we got to a certain point in this playthrough, I mentioned darkness-induced audience apathy. I was really starting to suffer that a bit with this game because all the tragedies that were happening and all the sad stuff was getting to the point where I'm like, yeah, there's no way this is gonna. Also, whatever.
Which
Yeah, it's
kind
a
of
bit-
made it surprising for me that Emil actually survived in the end.
Yeah, this
Now
is
he's
just
And now he's a bouncing head.
I'm sure he'll get a body for the sequel.
Yeah. Overall, it's a good story, but I wish it wasn't so formulaic at times.
It's the opposite of like of course you have to have conflict, but at the same time, if there's almost nothing but conflict, it can get to a point where the audience just gets tired of it because the audience never gets a moment to just wind down, you know.
Yeah. All right then. So, shall I read Chiro's final thoughts?
Yeah, but sorry, audience, she can't because of connection problem. Go ahead.
Okay.
Reed.
I love the story despite how tragic it is, and personally, I don't believe it became all that preachy during the second half. It was definitely a lot sadder, but seeing the story from a different perspective was very interesting and made me see the characters in a unique light. The gameplay looked fun but was pretty standard. The camera was a bit of a mess though, especially during the fights. The music was really nice, really relaxing for the most part, especially for a game with a story like this. And the game also looks very nice overall. So,
What saves it is the great art direction.
So yes, once again, another example of why me and Shuri are the same person. Anyway, who's next?
Go ahead,
Nope.
Jova.
Yeah, overall I liked this game. I think that it really deserved a lot more attention. I will say that actually I feel that the vocal tunes worked just right for this game, honestly. Thankfully for them, the sound direction and balancing is just well enough so that I'm not distracted by either or, so well done on them for that. The story, yes, the story is actually very well written. But I will say that I do wish that there was more to this, and okay, I think my biggest problem with this game is obviously this is a case where so much more was cut than needed to be cut, because I'd say the biggest flaw with this game is that it tells so much, but sadly does not get the content that it deserves to teach that story full and through. Because again, Square-Enix, god dang it.
Yep.
Seriously, there are so many details I want to know more about, but unfortunately they did not have the time and place to put them in. And while I know that that's not Yoko Taro's fault, that is sadly something that kind of hinders this game from being one of the greatest of all time for me. Don't get me wrong, some of the stuff it does is some of the best I've seen in some video games, but it still is kind of lacking. For instance, for those who want to know more about the finer details about, Grimoire Vice and Grimoire Noir, apparently you have to read a book for that. That, and also and I'm still left a bit confused as to how much of this was actually science or magic, because, there's stuff like the shells being all the sciencey stuff, but then, apparently by magic, I guess Papa NieR is the chosen one, so we can do whatever he did to let Kaine live. Wasn't really clear, did they merge or something? And I will admit that this story has a lot of tragedy to the point where you're like, oh, well, this can end good. However, I'm pleasantly surprised to see Emil survived. I'm sure he's gonna have a great time finding his friends. Oh, wait. Well, at least we don't have to see him realize the tragic irony. He shows up in the sequel, right?
He does.
Keen. Very, very good. I will say that, one complaint I do have is that, ending D. It's not so much that it was sad, but I do feel that Whereas all the other endings, like, well, all the other endings stayed in line with, the message overall of the game, the importance of family, or what those two have grown to care and love for do for each other will do. With ending D, I kind of feel like that one came out of nowhere considering the message of the story because, yeah, Papa NieR's not with his daughter anymore, like, seriously, what the heck, and we don't really get to see much more of what happens between Kaine and Yona afterwards, it's just, he's gone! Kaine's a human again.
Part of that stuff was actually the part of it was cut and pasted into novels.
Oh, well, there we go again, Mike. That's quite possibly my biggest point is, too much stuff was cut from this game.
Yeah, not just that, Joe, but at the same time, throughout the entire game, NieR has been constantly talking about how nothing will stop him from getting his daughter back. And I get that he's grown to care for Kaine, but at the same time, more than his own daughter, I find that a bit hard to buy.
To his credit, Yona was rescued at that point. His main goal was to rescue her. I mean, I guess he is someone who.
You have also to remember the thing that the physical appearance of NieR that you're watching in this version is not even the canonical one. The canonical one is the teenager the Japanese got.
Oh, yeah, so I guess in some way this
is also why a lot of the scenes, like still NieR asking Kaine to be friends, makes much more sense to a younger body age.
Fair enough. I guess we could chalk that up to localization, although, to be fair, that localization helped the game more than hurt it in the long run. But yeah, again, I'd say my major issue with this game is just like, well, it's way too small and short. I mean, there's so much great storytelling, so much great and intuitive characters here that you meet and tell, but we never really get the full description. And when I say full description, I mean, it never feels like we're getting the full tale and everything. And I get that some things are better left ambiguous, but considering the big plot twist at the end where it's revealed that, oh, you guys were actually just empty shells or something, I think you kind of need to explain things a bit more. And it gets explained in novels, but I really wanted to see more of this world. And sadly we won't get to do that in the sequel because it's like years after, but hey, at least we'll get a meal back. I guess, if anything, I would love a remake of this game to, be expanded. Sort of like the Final Fantasy VII remake is gonna be.
It's one of those things where, I think Smeghead put it best. It's fine to leave things open to interpretation, but when it gets to a point where I'm starting to think I deserve credit as a screenwriter, there's a problem.
Yeah. And again, this isn't in the case that that what we have is bad or anything. I mean, and again, I clearly recognize that this is not Taro's fault. I mean, this is clearly the fault of the higher-ups because honestly, even if he did, let's say he did cut out enough so that we wouldn't be confused, well, we'd be left with probably half the game.
Actually, I haven't addressed my thoughts on the deleted content, but go ahead, Joe, finish.
Yeah, basically, I'd say that this is not a noble failure. I'd say that this is definitely a noble medium. It's definitely a game I would recommend. Sadly, it's not one of the greatest, but definitely something I recommend. The gameplay is, it's traditional. It gets the job done. It's not my favorite, but again, it's nice enough, and I do feel that the battle system is interesting enough having the characters chat in the background here and there. Overall, my main thing is that this is an amazing story with amazing characters. The problem is that if you want the full story, you sadly have to get novels, because I can definitely say that by the end of this game...
Because fuck Yoshiwada.
Yeah. I can definitely say that, you're gonna love this world, but you're going to be left hungering for more, and not in the sense that it was a complete meal, but more in the sense that it was the most delicious main course of a meal with nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, great game, but god dang it, Square, give this one a remake with the full content, not exclusive to novels.
Well, from what I understand, I think Automata doesn't have any of that, so...
No.
Well,
I mean in terms of cut content that should have been in the game.
No, I think if I recall, it's a full clean experience.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Just before we get to Teo, I'll just Well, it is true, like Jova said, there are quite a lot of deleted content that should have been left in here, but of course, because fuck Yoshiwada, like I said. But honestly, much like with 15, the original release now, because now they're adding all that stuff back in with the patches. Much like with the original story of Final Fantasy 15 back when it came out last year, I think what is in here still manages to work as a whole.
Oh, I agree. I agree. It's just like, well, I feel that it's not the fullest experience. It's like, it's like with 15. Although, admittedly, 15's not as bad with that, but they still are giving us those patches that include story stuff. I will say that this feels like a case if 15 had a bit less story. Like, 15 had enough story to ride things out, but it's absolutely good that we're getting some of the blanks filled in.
Definitely.
This one feels like that, but to a more major extent, I'd say. To the point where...
We're comparing this to the content for 15 that's now being added back in for patches, when this game obviously didn't get that.
Basically, sure, the main contender point is like, well, to me, this game is one of the best... regarding story and whatnot. The only problem is, like, well, content-wise, it feels majorly incomplete. Like, not in the sense, like, well, where, I can't make heads or tails of what's going on, but to an extent where you kind of feel a bit too confused by the ending, especially the D ending, because, all of a sudden, Papa NieR is not going to be with his daughter in what's apparently the canon ending, and we don't even, and, I'd be fine with that if maybe we got an idea of what life is like without him, but no, it's just the last few seconds, like,
not a fan of ending D.
For comparison's sake, after the end of Chain of Memories in Kingdom Hearts, we actually did get to see some of the effects of what happened when Sora was forgotten by people. So, it left more of an impact. Here, she doesn't remember Papa NieR. That's it.
So you're asking for an extended cutscene, is what you're saying.
Basically, I'm asking for something like the Final Fantasy VII Remake, where scenes are added in content-wise, because, okay, like Tio told me, apparently a lot of the stuff that I'm asking for is drawn up on in Japanese exclusive novels.
All right.
And an entire companion book, essentially.
That's Square's fault, really.
I know
absolutely.
I know I'm constantly interrupting, but I actually have one more thing to add, so be sure to tell me when you're done, Jova. Sorry about this, too.
Yeah. Basically, though, like I said, I'm sure it's like, well, it's still a great and complete enough story, but this does feel like a game that could have definitely really been helped by updates akin to what Final Fantasy 15 is getting. Bits of content, story, and stuff added in. Because, again, in the end, it leaves me hungering for more, which is a good thing, but it leaves me hungering in the sense that I just had the main course of a meal with nothing else as opposed to the complete meal itself. Now, it's not...
If the game was released now, you would have gotten that, but when
it
was...
Fortunately, Shiroi, ever since this game came out, Yoshiwada was fucking fired, and now we have Yosuke Matsuda as the president, and this guy's actually been doing a really awesome job so far, in my opinion at least. So, and thanks to that, Automata got made.
And
we were talking about this a couple of parts ago, but somebody suggested a possible, maybe a remake. I think if this game is remade in the future, you'll probably get what you're asking for.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Especially
since NieR Automata is like the bee's knees. And yeah, like I said, for as tragic as this game was, I did like that the canon ending gives us something of an uplifting ending. I mean, Emil's gonna run into the inevitable...
Uplifting? That was the most bittersweet thing I've ever seen.
It's bittersweet in the sense...
I can't wait to see my friends! Oh, they're all dead.
It's bittersweet in the sense that he doesn't know yet, but hey, at least Emil survived, and hey, knowing that he's gonna be back in the sequel is
that's
good.
And the one that is alive doesn't remember me.
Well, actually, I think Kaine may remember him still, it's just Papa NieR she's forgotten.
Memory wasn't erased.
No, I mean, I'm speaking from Emil's perspective when talking about Kaine.
Oh, right, okay.
Oh, that's right, he never even brings up NieR. Dang, even Emil forgot him.
That's a great example. That final after credit scene was a great moment of dark humor. I think the game could have benefited from more of scenes like those, like where the game does some kind of dark humor to spice things up instead of just constantly going for the tragedy. But go ahead.
As unsettling as it was, that was a good scene.
But so basically to sum up my thoughts, great game, but it needs more to have people coming back after they've pretty much done all the endings.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because, it actually does do stuff like, showing us what the Shades were speaking during that run. It's a shame that some of that couldn't have been contributed to more content, but at this point I'm just relooping. great game. Wish it had more. Hope for a remake. Sure,
I'll make
Pedro.
she's already. I'll make this addendum as quickly as I can. There was one thing that Hideo Kojima said before Metal Gear Solid 5 came out, where, because Metal Gear Solid 5 obviously went for a darker tone compared to the previous games.
And got screwed up the rear in development, but that's another tale.
Yeah, but but we'll talk about Konami another time. But the point is, he said one thing that really shows why I think Metal Gear has the best stories that I've seen in games. He says, and I quote here: "Despite we're going for a darker tone, but we're still gonna have a lot of the fourth wall breaking stuff and stuff and he said, and I quote, we cannot have just a constant game of constant high tension because that would be really exhausting. We need to have some humor for the player to just wind down and that's something that this game that's the lesson that this game in particular. I don't know if I'm guessing probably Automata probably does it, but this game could have taken that lesson. It's a bit too serious heavy for its own good. But yeah, that's about it. I'm done.
I'm mostly agreeing with what Jova said, so I'm gonna be extremely quick and say that adding, in a sense that I will not rate this game my favorite of the PS3. You usually know that I tend to get a favorite game of the PlayStation eras I have to play. It's not my favorite of the PlayStation 3 era. That honor goes to Tales of Xillia, the first one.
Really? Okay.
Morvan will get to that. But that one is still pretty high to me. And then the fact that I first had to play in a period that wasn't exactly great for me, and it was tied to a person that I knew fine enough for having kind of like an emotional connection. But for the game itself, I'm kind of agreeing with what Jova said in a sense that I didn't have too much problem, but I recognize that the faults are too many for him, and I just know that the more he's gonna age, the more these are gonna get evident. So essentially, this either needs either a remake or a game that fills in the gaps. Essentially, it's imperative at this point.
Yeah.
Especially because the newer generation that started with Automata don't have a means to play this if they don't have any more of their old consoles. If there is not yet a PC port of this either. So you may want to need either a PC port, PC remake, port, whatever, or a complete full new remake. Would be fine either way, just as you fill in some of the gaps. But for everything else, I'm just fine with the story. Most of the side quests, some of them are a pain, and as I mentioned, the backtracking is kind of like a pain where it feels. The music I didn't have a problem with, probably only one or two of the tracks in total. But most of the time I was fine even with the lyric stuff. I think Keiichi Okabe kind of reinvented a new way of telling us these kind of tracks for these kind of games. Kind of like what Motoi Sakuraba did when composing for Dark Souls. The rest of it, it's mostly fine. I mean, the only characters I didn't really like were obviously the assholes like NieR and
most of the NPCs.
Well, the NPCs of the facade were good for the most part.
Most of the time. It's just like what Jova said. It makes you demand more to see more of this post-apocalyptic world. And that's what Automata is for. So I'm closing on that and say that I thank you for joining for me in this journey. And we'll see you when Dweebs records Automata.
See ya.
All right, see you, everybody.
So yeah.